talk about this for a second. The most famous book ever written about the fall of Rome was published in 1776, the exact same year that the United States declared its independence. From the very beginning, America has been looking in the mirror and seeing the ghost of Rome staring back.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with why we're so obsessed with Rome in the first place. Then we'll throw a curveball. What if we're looking at the completely wrong part of Roman history? After that, we'll zoom out and see what a kind of universal theory of collapse tells us about all this. It's going to be fascinating.
Okay, so the Rome obsession. When we make this comparison, we're almost always talking about the mighty Roman Empire, right? The global superpower. And in the years after 9/11, that comparison felt sharper and more real than ever. I mean, just look at the parallels. Both civilizations believed they were special, that they had some unique destiny. Both had a massive military presence all over the known world. But here's the real kicker. For both Rome and America, all that incredible power didn't necessarily make them feel safe. And just like the Romans lived with a fear of barbarians at the gate, the 9/11 attacks brought that same shocking sense of vulnerability right to the American homeland. But here's where things get really interesting. What if we're making the wrong comparison entirely? What if the story of the crumbling Roman Empire isn't the one we should be studying at all? Okay, take a look at these two lists. On the left, you've got the symptoms of the late empire's collapse. Hyperinflation, constant invasions, generals fighting each other for power, classic stuff. But now, look at the column on the right. These are the problems that plagued the Roman Republic centuries earlier. Massive income inequality, the middle class getting squeezed, political violence. Which one of these sounds more like the world you see in the news today? And this is absolutely crucial, because the Roman Republic, which lasted for almost 500 years, wasn't brought down by some foreign army. No, it rotted from the inside. It completely unraveled from within. And it wasn't some single catastrophic event. It was a slow-motion train wreck over 100 years. It all started with political assassinations over the gap between rich and poor. Then, powerful generals started building their own private armies that were loyal to them, not to Rome. Eventually, power itself was privatized by a few powerful men, which led directly to civil war, and finally, the death of the Republic. It was taken apart piece by painful piece.
And here's the crazy paradox at the heart of it all. The Republic's greatest strength, its military success abroad, is exactly what destroyed it at home. All these conquests brought in tons of wealth, but it all went to a tiny group of elites. Cheap grain and over 1 million slaves completely bankrupted the small, independent Roman farmer, the very backbone of the Republic. So they poured into the cities, creating this huge, restless, unemployed mob that politicians kept happy with free food and entertainment, the famous bread and circuses. And what you were left with was this massive, unhealthy gap between the super rich and the super dependent.
Now, let's zoom out for a second. Let's step away from Rome, because there's this incredible theory that suggests this isn't just a Roman story. It might just be a universal pattern for how any successful society can end up failing. It's an idea from an anthropologist named Joseph Tainter, and his argument basically is that societies can literally become victims of their own success. See, to solve problems, we build more complex systems, more laws, more bureaucracy, bigger armies, new technologies. But eventually, you get to a point where the cost of just maintaining all that complexity starts to be more than the benefit you get from it. You start getting less and less bang for your buck. And this path really shows us why collapse isn't always some sudden disaster like a meteor strike. It can be this slow, grinding process, where a society just gets so top-heavy and complicated that it can't afford to fix its own problems anymore. It gets so expensive to keep the whole system running that eventually just letting it all fall apart and simplifying, well, that can start to look like the most logical, even economical choice.
Okay, so let's bring it all back home. Are we seeing these same patterns today? This combination of internal rot from the Roman Republic and the crushing weight of complexity that Tainter talks about, is it playing out right now, just with a modern twist? Well, check out this comparison. Back in the late Roman Republic, you had 3 men, the triumvirate, who basically privatized the power of the government. Now fast forward to today. You have a handful of tech billionaires who control the fundamental pillars of our world: space infrastructure, global commerce, and the very flow of information itself. They might not hold public office, but make no mistake, the power they wield is immense.
This line really says it all. Control of technology has become the new control of legions. I mean, think about the war in Ukraine. When their military needed crucial satellite access for an operation, who made the call? It wasn't a president or a general. The decision to turn that capability on or off rested with a private citizen, Elon Musk. That's a level of power over war and peace that used to belong only to nations. And look at this. Just as the Roman Republic started relying less on its own citizens and more on hired soldiers, we see a kind of parallel trend. In 1956, a huge portion of the graduating class at Princeton enlisted in the military. By 2004, that number had collapsed to just 8 people. This growing disconnect between the country's elites and the military that defends it, plus our heavy reliance on private contractors, it really echoes that same hollowing out of civic duty that weakened Rome from within.
So this all leads us to the final, and maybe the most important question. The Roman Republic wasn't conquered. It was given away. After a century of chaos, political violence, and crippling inequality, the citizens of Rome were just tired. They were so exhausted that they willingly traded the messy uncertainty of liberty for the promise of order and stability under an emperor. The Senate still met, the old titles were still used, but the democracy was just a ghost. The substance was gone. So as we look around today, maybe the real question isn't about invaders at the gates. Maybe the real question is, what are we, right now, willing to trade away, and what are we hoping to get in return?